From a character standpoint, HBO's The Sopranos is probably the best show ever made. Throughout its 6 seasons, it gave us many complex and colourful characters. The most obvious of these being the protagonist himself, Tony Soprano, who in my opinion is television's most multifaceted character. Other notable examples include Carmela Soprano, Junior Soprano, Paulie Walnuts, and many more. Among these characters is the show's deuteragonist, Christopher Moltisanti, the show's most complex and well-written character behind Tony. Portrayed brilliantly by Michael Imperioli, Christopher is arguably the most tragic and relatable character on the show. This is supported in various ways, such as his love of film and screenwriting, his struggles with addiction, and his disillusionment with work, as well as when you consider that Christopher, like many other characters on the show, is merely a product of his environment. However, he's also one of the most despicable characters on the show. This is shown through a variety of ways, whether it be his constant beatings and eventual betrayal of his girlfriend Adriana, his short temper, his cold-blooded nature, his sheer stupidity. The list goes on and on for Christopher. Yet in typical Sopranos fashion, you still end up rooting for his character. One of the strongest facets of the show in my opinion is making a character, no matter how repulsive, likeable and compelling, only to juxtapose this with the harsh reality that they're horrific people. There are plenty of episodes that support this, perhaps the most notable one being the episode Walk Like a Man from Season 6B. In this video, I will analyse 2 scenes from this episode that I believe best exemplify the 2 components of Christopher's character. The first one being the scene where after Christopher makes amends with Paulie, he decides to have a drink and ends up being laughed at by everyone due to drunkenly talking about his newborn daughter. And in a brief yet crucial moment in his drunken state, realised no one gave a shit about him, the people whom he'd done so much for and sacrificed for, yet in the end, they thought he was nothing more than a joke, a junkie, rendering his choices and sacrifices meaningless, something we see trouble Christopher throughout the whole of Season 6, where we see how Christopher never really recovered from the death of Adriana. The emotional impact of the scene is only amplified by the slow camera work and distorted sounds of everyone laughing, with the shot of Tony laughing in the mist being a highlight in particular, with its haunting tone and Tony bearing resemblance to the devil in it, while also illustrating Tony's hypocrisy even more as he happily listens to Paulie ridicule Christopher's daughter Caitlin. However, if someone made that kind of remark about Meadow, he would have went into one of his classic rages. Additionally, this scene also emphasises the contradiction that is Tony Soprano, as when Christopher was a junkie and addict, Tony scrutinised him constantly and told him to sober up, yet when Christopher was a recovering addict, he was ridiculed constantly and criticised for his absence in certain places, such as the Bada Bing. Something Christopher referred to in an earlier scene in the episode, where he's at a meeting and talks about his experiences with Tony, where he describes him as someone who pours you a drink with one hand, judges you with the other if you take it. Another way this is evident is in the conversation the two share at the barbecue in Christopher's backyard, where Christopher points out how Tony idolised Dickie Moltisanti, Christopher's father and Tony's former mentor, when he was plagued by the exact same issues that Tony criticises Christopher for, such as being a junkie. The final reason as to why I believe this scene elicits sympathy for Christopher is due to the realism the scene possesses, which ties back to the relatability of Christopher's character, as I'm sure many people have been in a situation where they've been with their friends, only to realise that none of them actually gave a shit about them, no matter how much they did for them. Overall, this scene effectively conveys Christopher's sympathetic side, by showing us his tragic nature for a pivotal moment in his downfall, as he realises he sacrificed everything for people who couldn't care less about him. with one of those people being the man he claimed he was going to hell for. The scene that shows the other side to Christopher's character is the scene straight after, where he goes to JT Dolan for consolation and someone to vent to. He drunkenly talks about his resentment of Tony, Paulie, etc. before hinting at what he's done and what he knows, referencing the likes of Adriana and Ralph Cifaretto, before talking about how much destruction he could cause if he flipped to the FBI, as well as going on a drunken ramble about how his father abandoned him, the witness protection program, how he let JT Dolan help him make his film Cleaver, despite the fact that JT wrote it, and how he's pouring his heart out. JT rebukes him by telling him he's in the mafia. Christopher responds to this by shooting him in the head before leaving. The reason why this scene is so effective is because it reminds us what a terrible person Christopher actually is, and how he practically deserved everything that happened to him, as he expected consolation and comfort from someone he got into debt, assaulted and took credit from, before killing him as a result of looking for someone to take his anger out on, due to not being able to do anything to the guys without severe consequences. Another reason to consider behind Christopher's actions is that he did it not only because he was rebuked, but also because he realised he said too much and had to kill him regardless. This highlights his recklessness, short temper, and tendency to drag people down with him when he's in pain, with this being something he learned off Tony, as we see his character drag people down to his level when he's in pain. All of this harks back to one of the primary points of Christopher's character. The man is a full-blown liability, with this being one of the primary reasons why he was murdered by Tony. In conclusion, these two scenes in the penultimate episode of Christopher Moltisanti's character highlight the moral complexities and the multifaceted characterization which make The Sopranos such a groundbreaking and lauded show. The use of juxtaposition is masterfully executed, as it illustrates the twisted and treacherous nature of organised crime, while also conveying how no matter how much we may sympathise with the tragic circumstances of these characters, and be compelled by their charisma, relatability, or complexities, the hard reality is they're still stone-cold sociopathic criminals, who are nothing more than pieces of scum, and who deserve everything which occurs to them. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts on Christopher Moltisanti and The Sopranos? If there's a film or show you'd like to see me cover in the future, feel free to let me know. I'd greatly appreciate it. Until then, thanks for watching.